Hi friends, this is your pal Scott Garibay, and today we are going to talk about Heroes of the Borderland and what I believe constitutes a new edition of Dungeons & Dragons, the new Heroes Board D&D edition. And that is, I believe that Heroes of the Borderland has created a new edition of Dungeons & Dragons, and I want to talk about what can be done with that new edition, because I think there's two primary paths. All right, so first of all, what created this new edition? Well, I think there's fundamental changes in the rule set for Heroes of the Borderlands. So first of all, multi DM, that's brand new. They finally got rid of the strength score, right? In fact, they got rid of all the attribute scores and we're just bonus. Like that's straight out of ICRPG. And really cleans up a major problem that we've had in D&D for a long time. Power tokens. There's no equivalent of power tokens in Dungeons & Dragons. Scribeless D&D. I kept saying no writing. Scribeless D&D, which is we're going to play Dungeons & Dragons and you don't have to write anything down. Or like that is a huge change. And what's exciting is in many ways that kind of transforms Dungeons and Dragons into an incredibly into probably one of the most complicated board games that's ever existed, and also one of the most expansive board games that's ever existed, while still remaining a tabletop role-playing game. But this scribeless part is a really big deal. It's massive. So you have scribeless, the power tokens, multiple DMs. What else was it? Oh, monster 3x5 monsters is another major aspect. There's these core fundamental changes in this new edition, and it really brings Dungeons & Dragons in a very exciting new direction. So what is that direction? What can be done with Hero Boards D&D edition? Well, I think it can go in two directions. Okay, so Teos Abadia did a fantastic breakdown of this entire set. And did a really phenomenal job of like, hey, this is what we can do with this is what's in the box, and these are all the major changes. And one of the things he said is, okay, you jump in, you have this new group, you've spent $50, you got 4 people around, you have 5 people around the table, you have 4 players and 1 DM. And by the way, that's another thing that they did is, it does not, if you want to put 5 people around the table, you literally cannot provision 5 players. You can't provision 5 players. That's a huge change, right? And also you're like, whoa, that's limiting. It's not limiting. It's actually better. One of the, and I actually think it might actually be trying to fix a major problem that's appeared in Dungeons & Dragons recently. One of the things that's interesting is Dungeons & Dragons has probably about 3 or 4 major live action plays. And these are literally Hollywood stars who spend millions of dollars to create hundreds of live action plays of Dungeons & Dragons. Some of them have Amazon shows, some of them have sold out Madison Square Garden. But one of the problems that they have is they just jam a ridiculous number of players around the table. At one point, they routinely have 7 to 10 people sitting at the table. Players, 7 to 10 players sitting at the table. That's bad advice for anyone who's playing Dungeons & Dragons. And the reality is, and recently there was a major YouTube channel that reported that one of these groups had 40-minute waits between turns, right? Now, if you bring people in for Dungeons & Dragons and you're following what you saw on these podcasts, or on these live action plays, you're cooked, right? Like nobody's going to sit around for 40 minutes until that's not even reasonable, right? And so getting 4 means the game stays tight. there you can actually have a reasonable amount of focus on players that that are ready to play, and it gets Dungeons and Dragons back to what it was supposed to be, rather than this new kind of bloated, distended version of it, right? So I think that's really interesting. So okay, so now that you have this scribeless version of Dungeons and Dragons, what can you do with it? And so one path, okay, you could do two paths, and in this video I'm going to talk about conversion path. Okay, so what is conversion path? So you reach third. So Teos Abadia said this, like, okay, so you get these 4 people around the table, you all jump in and start playing Dungeons and Dragons, and then you hit third level, right? Now you're stuck. You have nowhere to go, right? Because you don't have you don't have anywhere to go, right? You literally can't provision people with these tokens that they've learned to play with these from the box. You can't provision them from the box, okay? But what you can do is you can convert, right? Now, what's really interesting is at this point, how will these groups convert? It'd be very interesting to see how they convert. So one way they can convert is they can get material from online from people who are converting. Actually, no. Okay, let's talk about how they can convert. They can take the DMG, one person. I don't think the whole group would have to do this, but you'd have to have a converter, right? Someone within the group who says, okay, we're all going to 4th level. I'm going to create the new equipment cards, the new spell cards, and the new boards for 4th edition. And in addition to that, I'm going to bring in some higher level CR monsters from the monster manual. I'm going to convert them to 3x5 cards. And then also I'm going to create some new NPC cards, and I'm going to create some oh, and there's lots of NPCs that they can convert from existing adventures. And they can even do they can literally take any of the books, the adventures, and convert everything in those books to cards, right? Or just enough that they need to run those books, with cards. And that's pretty exciting. So basically they can simply convert what exists now in the PHB, MM, and DMG, and in every D&D source book, one source book at a time, into these card options. Now what's interesting is, what can they do with that? Can they share that beyond their own game? Possibly. I don't know. Like, one of the issues is this is completely new territory, right? So they would have to check, what's allowed. Because from what I remember, I think it was the PHB or the DMG in the 2024 core rule books, encouraged players to use cards, right? To convert things to cards that were in the books. It's already been encouraged within the book. So there may be a permissioning there, and that's it. That's very interesting. So these groups would have to check before they shared beyond their own group, but you'd certainly have the ability to do this with your own group. So that's the conversion path, and I think the conversion path is really interesting, and that could take probably 1, 2, maybe 3 years to take a group all the way up to 20th level. And you'd have all the boards, you'd have all the equipment cards, the spell cards, the non-player character cards, there's a few, the 3x5 monsters, and I think that, and also tokens, right? Yeah, that's really wild. But that would be, and then once you did that once, that would allow you to play probably the vast majority of all adventures that have been written so far. And the only thing you'd have to convert at those points is put in location cards, magic item cards, and non-player character cards for each one of the adventures. That's really fascinating. I'm really fascinating. So that would be the conversion path, which I'm very excited to see happen. Every single word you just heard in this video is my humble opinion. Nothing more, nothing less. The important part is when I get to hear your humble opinion, when you get in the comments and send your traffic. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a fetch millennium.